think you should.
Welcome to this week's episode of Whoscussion. We're your hosts from your hosts from Fano, ThatRandomGuy, and the audibly pleasing Harriet Kelly.
Give a toast.
Give a toast.
I'd like to give a toast to my. That's what we're going to do.
That's what we're going to do. We've also got with us today, who's been wonderful since we've had him on the cast, and it's great to have him as a new regular. The Late Crow. Late Crow, tell us a bit about your stuff on YouTube here.
Hello, well, yes, pleasure to be here as always. Pleasure to join my voice with these lovely voices.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, so yes, I currently have a YouTube channel on which there is a small amount of film projects as I slowly get better at making films on my way to hopefully become a director one day. So yeah, YouTube will be my chronology of shit to not so shit films.
And he's been getting pretty good, guys. I'm not a huge Christmas person, but his Christmas special last year was fantastic. And by the way, I'm looking forward to being guy number 1 who dies in episode 2 of whatever show you get off the ground there, The Late Crow.
Oh, don't worry, I have better stuff planned for you than that.
Oh, well, thank you, but I want a Wilhelm scream death, just throwing that out there.
Okay. This
week for part A, we're going to be doing Greek-spearing gifts, and they keep killing Suzie. Following up with 2 8th Doctor Adventures, The Book of Kells, and part 1 of a Mars story called Deimos. And finishing off with a 5th Doctor short trip, The Monkey House. And a little bit of a spoiler, not really a spoiler, because short trips are pretty short, but the 5th Doctor ones are getting really messed up. Really messed up. So, Greek-spearing gifts. Harriet's going to take us away.
Okay. All right. And that's the episode.
Sweet. All right, let's move on to part B. We'll catch you guys next week.
Okay. So in this episode, no one can pronounce Toshiko's name at all.
Dude, it's crazy. Like, especially when you get into the synopsis in this episode, there's a character who should be able to pronounce it that can't. That wound me right up. Toshiko. It's not hard, guys. It's not hard.
It's not hard. It is not hard. But anyway, that's besides the point. The point is that this episode's bad, and we should really just move on. But we're going to continue anyway. So, okay. So we get just the beginning of this, just the whole thing. It's just it's so cheese. Okay, the beginning of this, we start off with back in 1800s. I'm guessing. I'm not sure exactly when this is.
I think it is 1800s. I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure it's the 1800s, considering the attire. Anyway, we see a couple of characters we're not really introduced to yet. We probably won't really get that introduced to them. They were kind of pointless anyway. But anyway, and there's a soldier guy and this woman who's like trying to hit on him, and for some reason he doesn't seem like he's into it, but he is into it. I'm guessing that no one knows how sex works when it comes to the writers of this again. But,
oh yeah, definitely.
That's just a thing that's happening. But anyway, he hits her. She runs away, obviously, and then there's a crazy light in the forest and a crazy sound that is terribly mixed and actually like almost blew my eardrums.
Right.
For real.
No, it was so well mixed. I don't know what you're talking about. It reminded me of late 80s video games. It was that well mixed.
Yeah. It's fucking amazing. Anyway, so then she runs off and we're following the soldier guy. He comes upon her again after this flash of light and all that sort of stuff. And it seems like he shoots her. We'll get back to this later, but the thing about the guns of the 1800s is that they only had one shot. They also weren't very effectual, and they weren't very accurate. And if anyone in that time wanted to kill somebody effectually, and especially if they were like leaving with a weapon, like leaving home with a weapon, going out into the woods or something, they would take a sword. Didn't
that guy actually have one as well?
I think he may have had a sword, but he pulls out a single shot pistol instead. which he knows for a fact that wouldn't work, especially at the range that he shot her at. Like, so yeah. Moving on. It was way too short for that kind of accuracy. Anyway, okay, so we need to move on. So, into the future, present day. Are they
outside the government and beyond the police in the present day?
Yeah, no, they are. They are not either of those things.
No, they are not.
Anyway, we apparently we've got the Torchwood team. They've been brought in to examine an archaeological site, I'm guessing, of some kind, and apparently in Wales. I'm not sure what that's about. But anyway, they found some remains of a person who's like had their chest cavity caved in. Not sure why Torchwood is involved in this.
I'm so glad you asked that question. Why are Torchwood involved?
I feel like it's because of the machine that they found, but it's not really like a machine so much, especially not in the way that it looks at the moment. It just sort of looks like a moldy formation of some kind. I mean, sure, it's metal, and it was found next to something that has been dated back to the 1800s, but it's not particularly weird. I mean, surely a historical society would be involved first,
right?
But then,
like the historical society that works at Coal House right next to the Millennium Centre in Cardiff.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Torchwood must have so many missed calls from Time Team, seriously.
But anyway, then Jack investigates this device in an attempt to reason as to why they're there, and says that it contains a bunch of materials that are definitely not from the time. So that does place it in their area of expertise. But then he says it has dark matter in it.
Oh my god! Yes, right.
How did he scan for that? How did he scan for that?
Just
anyway,
child. All will be explained.
And also, what's his purpose? It's an ineffectual and it's a non-reactive material. That's why we have so much trouble finding it. That is why we call it dark matter. So, what would be the purpose of having it in a device? Anyway, so we'll continue from there. And we have a terrible direction from everybody involved, where the camera shows the woman that we saw in the past time, but her hair's short and she's wearing modern clothes, and we're just like, oh, crazy. Not at all.
It's so outlandish.
It was so totally not expected at all. Anyway, especially considering she was in all the previous shots, we kind of knew this from the last episode. Anyway, so we meet her and Toshiko after Toshiko has a little bit of angst about working for Torchwood, who it seems like everybody has, and she's painted with this terrible backstory of apparently being in love with Owen, who is a terrible person and no one would love him ever.
Yeah, exactly.
And not sure how he manages to. It's really the portrait they're trying to paint is that he's like some lady's man who's had sex with every female that joins Torchwood, right? Yeah. But the thing is that he is none of those things. He is not particularly attractive. He is a weedy little man who is a doctor. I mean, sure, I wouldn't say that he's not capable of getting a woman, but he is not that kind of person.
He's not particularly charismatic either.
Yeah, he's not particularly charismatic. And when we get to later on with the thought processes that go through people's heads, it really doesn't make sense as to why anyone...
Also, it's proven that he only pulls tail if he uses spray from an alien world.
Exactly. That was kind of the point, was that he needed to use that all the time to get tail. So, I mean... Anyway, so... It's ridiculous, and Toshiko should be ashamed of herself. But anyway, she gets some fine things later on, so it's okay. Anyway, so she meets up with this person, this lady that we're aware of already. Totally not obvious that she's a bad person in some way. She offers Toshiko a mind reading amulet, which really doesn't make sense, but especially considering that their people seem to be made of energy. So why would they have a mind reading amulet?
Yeah.
to help that along. I don't. Anyway,
And also, she explains that her people communicate telepathically, so why do they need an external device to do
why
that?
do they need a device? I mean, I guess it could make sense if they were like trying to use it to communicate with other races, but considering they seem to be capable of inhabiting a body of an unknown species, they probably don't actually need that anyway. But anyway, point. There is no point really in this episode, but anyway, so she has some happy fun times with this girl because apparently that's what happens with this amulet, because it's just a natural aphrodisiac. But Toshiko's now able to hear people's thoughts, and obviously human beings with their forefront thoughts, the thoughts that just happen, instinctually, are generally pretty, not good, really. I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's kind of the idea that ruins a lot of those teen dramas that have the same thing happen, which kind of makes you wonder why they decided to put it in an adult show. But anyway,
yeah. The show is for the lowest common denominator, bro. Like season one's pretty bad.
So this is all happening. Toshiko eventually uses this power to stop a man from killing his ex-wife and kid. I'm not sure exactly what the statistics are on that, but I'd say it's pretty low that would happen. But also the fact that he walked through town with a hunting rifle as well. I mean, I don't.
It was in a golf bag, though, right? Wasn't it?
It was in a golf bag as well, but it's still I'm not sure how easy it is in Britain, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot less easy than it is in America.
It really, really is.
So I'm not sure how he would get that. I mean, he could actually have been hunting before, which would explain it. But then, why is he walking all the way through town with it? And why is his main thoughts just, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him? That doesn't make any sense. That's not what a killer would think.
Also humans aren't really actually one-track minds. We think about heaps of stuff without any cohesion, because our subconscious is crazy.
If he was really that amped up to want to do that, he would be playing through those events constantly in his mind. That's what Toshiko should have been hearing, as a man replaying bad events over and over in his head. Not, I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna kill him. Because that's not even a teenager's view on what a psychopath is. It's not reality. Anyway, Toshiko saves him by hitting him over the head with a golf club because,
sorry, I just got the amusement part there. He was holding a golf bag and she hits him with a golf club. Oh my god.
I love when the late crow just dancing. He's by the way, that's great.
So anyway, she does that, and she is apparently happy with herself with that, and then is willing to let the woman, the crazy alien woman, and now that we've seen her form, she's a crazy alien energy being, let her into Torchwood to get a device to get out of there, because she apparently trusts her completely, even though up until this point she had been, not particularly happy, because, she gave her a dangerous device that had been...
She's in love with Owen, so...
And she is supposed to be in love with Owen, not this alien.
No, I'm just saying, she doesn't make great life choices.
No, she really does. It's true. You're very right there. I mean, it's just very. They're setting up this character who's supposed to be, super smart and to the point where she later on we know that she builds a sonic device without without help or anything like that. So she's supposed to be this super intelligent woman, but she's being painted like she doesn't know anything about real life. Especially considering in canon she's supposed to also be that doctor that was in with the pig alien as well. Yeah. So that character again was completely different to the one that we're seeing at the moment. So it really doesn't work. And as we've said before, all of these characters are different from episode to episode. Yeah. Except for Yanto, because he's not a character for any of them.
No, Yanto is because he says I'm a character in every episode.
He does. So he is pretty constant. But anyway, so she gets Toshiko gets her into Torchwood after a whole bunch of reading people's minds, especially her colleagues, and getting angry at them for having bad thoughts, which, that's kind of what the thought police is bad for. But anyway,
we have seen Happiness Patrol, right?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, she noticed that she couldn't read Jack's mind, which is probably the only interesting that's part of this episode. But then they kind of ruin that by saying that he's on a different wavelength because he's dead. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. He is actually alive, and a god gave him that ability. So why would he be different in any way? The idea was that he was supposed to be actually alive. But anyway, I would say that's probably just because he is actually psychically trained to
like the Torchwood crew.
Yeah, or
Oh wait, don't they work for Torchwood?
They kind of do, don't they? Anyway, Gwen's really. I mean, I guess we could say that Gwen and Owen aren't trained properly in that way, so that makes sense for them. Yanto isn't even really part of Torchwood either, so it makes sense that he wouldn't. But his attempts to be a character are just completely overridden. But anyway, Jax does make sense because he's from the future as well. He's probably experienced many of psychic aliens in his time, so he's learned to get around that. But it's still it gets ruined by simply trying to say that it was because he can continue being alive. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so is also ruined by the fact that he does attempt to talk to her through his mind at the end to tell her to do what he needs to do to save everybody. So clearly it's not a different wavelength thing then. So who's writing this episode? Anyway.
Toby Whithouse, and him and I don't get along very well.
No. So anyway, this basically culminates in the alien woman holding Chico hostage to get a device back. Jack says, "Okay, I'll give it to you as long as you give us back the Asian lady." And he's like, "All right, cool. Here's your device. Oh, by the way, I've reprogrammed it. Do 6 Machina, and you're out of here." And that's it. That's cool. The episode.
That actually is the episode.
Yeah.
So, with that wonderful episode out of the way, I'm going to grab the late Crow's thoughts, come back for Harriet Skelly's, and then I don't even care. The late Crow, what are your thoughts?
I really don't care either, if I'm honest, but I suppose I should dispel some thoughtful verbiage. Okay. Yeah, this was not a fun time. If I'm actually honest, I was on my phone more so than watching the screen.
Yeah, same.
But I think the thing that pissed me off the most was the direction of the camera. The camera direction was abysmal. It was actually. I was just like I think you mentioned it before. Just the camera moving in ways that the human eye could not possibly. And it's so disorientating. It's like, stop it. And
I wonder if the DOP was the one who worked on that dumb 1950s episode in season 28 of Doctor Who. What's the name of that episode?
Maybe.
The dumb one. Oh, Idiot's Lantern.
Possibly. But I've noticed a lot through the season that whoever Torchwood season 1's DOP is obsessed with that style of shot wherein you're kind of panning towards something, but there's kind of something out of focus in front of the camera. That's fine for kind of starting a scene, but to use that shot throughout the entire scene is so annoying.
Aye.
That was pissing me off. All the characters piss me off because I cannot find any time to empathize with any of them when they keep changing their motivations and characteristics between episodes. But then again, as you say, Yanto's consistent, so maybe he might be my favourite character because he's at least consistent.
Yeah. I remember being sad in season 3 with Yanto, so yeah, maybe he is my favourite. Because I remember every scene where he goes, "I'm a character." I'm like, you are a character, buddy. You go.
You go.
And every time everyone else starts up, I was like, "Oh, shut up." I really can't pick out anything in particular that pissed me off because it was a bit forgettable overall. Honestly, I just
Yeah.
honestly did not enjoy this and didn't pay a hell of a lot of attention to it. Although I will admit that Gwen and Ellen's relationship is still pissing me off. I
Yeah.
don't like it. I don't
No,
like being forced to in a complicit position with it. It's not cool.
Right.
And Owen's a dick still.
Okay. And anything else before I move it over to Harry Scully?
I might remember something later, but for now, I'm just wanting to get this over with.
Call us back during part B. I need to talk about part A again. All right. So Harry Scully.
Yeah. Everything that Liko said, absolutely. I believe all of that. It was terrible camera direction. It was terrible character motivation. It was terrible. I had a real hard time getting through it, and it doesn't. I don't know whose idea this was, but whoever it was, they should be fired.
Well, actually, this is the only episode Toby Whitt has wrote for Torchwood.
Yes, I guess he was kind of fired. So that's a good thing. But I don't. The idea for the character, psychic being that came as a prisoner, that all kind of works. The start sequence was ridiculous. They didn't need to have this character development for Toshiko to like do this stuff. It doesn't make any sense for her to be this character that they've made her anyway. So trying to turn her into something else doesn't make sense. You just write her as being what she's supposed to be. You don't need to change it at all. I just don't understand anymore. Honestly, this entire season is like that. So that's my thoughts about it, really.
Right. Okay. Well, my thoughts are a bit more muddly here. So for the first episode ever of the Sarah Jane Smith adventures, they introduce another person from this alien's race.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand like Russell T's shared universe thought process here, because that's a little kid's show, like actually designed for little kids. And you bring in a character from your show that had sex with another main character. I don't get that. That's really, really dumb. And it poisons the well more so than poisoning the well of Doctor Who, the family show.
Yeah.
So, like, I know kids will never get into that, but, like, I mean, like, if they, find this thing called the internet and Google Sarah Jane Smith and, like, oh, I want to know more about this alien. Well, there's not really a filter to stop them going, when a mummy cat and a daddy cat really like each other. So,
yeah,
I don't know. Toby Woodhouse, I just think, is just not really good in general. There is an episode I do love from him. He did write God Complex, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and I love God Complex.
He wrote another couple of decent ones. He wrote A Town Called Mercy and Under the Lake / Before the Flood.
Oh, I'll give him a bloody pass. But he wrote School Reunion, all right? And The Vampires of Venice.
Wait, can we revoke that? Give him a pass, given the last contribution to his Doctor Who writing?
Right. Oh, The Lie of the Land. Oh my god, really? He wrote The Lie of the Land?
Yeah.
That's the last part of the Monk trilogy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Toby, I hate you so much. Oh my god. I wish bloody Mark Gatiss' character did shoot your character in the Christmas special. Yeah, the characterization is non-existent to Gain. The dark nature of Yanto's thoughts, where he's sort of self-deprecating, makes me question their decisions in the next episode quite heavily, because Yanto can't be the character in next episode that he is in this episode. It's just not possible. It's really, really infuriating. Yeah. Now, going back to what we were talking about earlier with Toshiko, is that lady says, I know everything about you, and she's psychic, so she can go inside her mind. How can she not pronounce her name? Like that.
Actually talking about that, the funny thing about a lot of the things that she says about Toshiko is interesting, because most of it sounds like public record, considering at this point it's basically confirmed that Torchwood is now a government enterprise as well. So it's not really that crazy that she would know that, because she could just look it up.
This is true. I agree. She even explains to Tosh that that's the case. But the thing is that she is psychically linked with her.
Yeah,
I'm just
so
like,
how does she not know
how do you not know how to say her name? It's like that grinds my gears more than her co-workers not being able to say it, because she literally has the ability to know how to say it. So that irritated me. And I just feel like there's nothing drives this plot forward. Like when you're going through the synopsis, I noticed it was really hard to get through because there is nothing pushing the story forward. The story doesn't move. No. Like this episode is stale. And I've never ever really witnessed that in television before. It was almost like I was watching an American show. And I was like, oh yeah? Didn't know Grace Point was written this early. And the prostitute scene at the beginning, I think, was unnecessary. I don't think
this episode was unnecessary.
Yeah,
it didn't add anything to the story until way later when she was literally explaining that scene anyway. So you could have just had that be the explanation for the scene.
Yeah, Owen confusing the corpse for a woman also brings his credentials into question again.
It does.
It's not the first time. So
I mean, the thing is that the truth of the matter though is that the idea of trying to find out the gender based on bone structure is not an exact science anyway. You can't just can't just look at a pelvis and be like, okay, that's the female shape, because humans are different very constantly, so it would be ridiculous for us to for all skeletons to look the same underneath as well. It's just not the way of the world. So it makes sense that he was unable to do that, but the way that he tries to like play it off doesn't make sense. He should have just been like, well, statistically he was kind of like a female, so it makes sense. Like he gave the entirely wrong excuse basically. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
And that's why I have scientific advisors.
Right? But my main issue here is they're trying desperately to have the audience question whether or not the lady in present day is the lady from the past.
Yeah.
And I'm like, A, you know the Next Time trailers exist in the new Who run, right? And B, who honestly cares? I don't care.
No one really cares about who the person is, and also obviously someone was killed there. That's why you've done this. If the lady is still there, then it's definitely the dude. Why do we care? Like, you've already given us this information. It doesn't help to change it at all. It doesn't.
It's another thing that stops the plot from moving.
Exactly. It's like consistently keeping the plot from moving forward.
What do you mean stop from moving? It never got moving.
This is true. This is true.
Correct.
Jack knows the whole time what's happening, and I kind of like, what was the connective tissue there for him? Did you guys click? I still can't pinpoint when he...
What do you mean?
Well, because Jack knew the whole time Toshiko was working for this alien lady, literally the whole time. So like, is he familiar with the device, or...
Yeah, so what I believe happened is the first time he tries to read his mind, he picks up on that instantly because of his psychic training, and that's why he knows suddenly that she's become different. But also, I imagine that he knows the device because he was able to reprogram it, so he knows the kind of race that control it and use it. So there's that. So he kind of figured out most of it. But at the same time, it's not very well shown.
It's not well acted either on John Barrowman's part. He kind of seems cheesy, really cheesy.
I feel like he's really kind of over the scripts. Basically, it's kind of like Chris on his season. So
yeah. Oh, especially the stuff that's come out about that recently.
Yes.
So I really don't understand why this was put into production. Reading this script, you would have been like, this is boring, and not made it.
Pretty much.
So I just don't know. I'm really irritated by this story. Nothing at all comes to fruition whatsoever.
Nothing.
And then Jack's like all like buddy with like Toshiko. But the thing is that it's been established in episode 1 that they don't care about each other. So what? I don't get it. I just there's no consistency at all for the overall tone of this series.
I think they're trying to play it that since Gwen joined, they're trying to make an effort to care for each other, whereas they didn't before. I think that's where they're going with it.
Wow.
That makes less sense even.
Yeah, you pulled a Harriet Scully there trying to fix the RTD problem. So well done.
It's a nice attempt, but it still doesn't fix the problem.
It doesn't. With that, guys. Oh, no, you first.
I'm sure Jack said something about when he first recruited Gwen, something about her being compassionate or something, and maybe they could learn from that or whatever.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It was right after Yanto for the first time said he was a character. I remember that.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, he walked in and said, "I'm a character." And he's going to completely betray said character in the next episode. So we're going to jump into the next episode, guys, unless you've got anything else to say about this actually soul-crushing experience.
Just wanted to be going.
Okay, cool. So this episode breaks the entire reason for Jack's prologue in every episode. And that's always pissed me off. Always.
Yeah.
And... they're outside the government beyond the police, even though they're established in their first ever appearance in Doctor Who as being part of the government.
Yeah.
So that's really dumb. But in this episode, they're not even beyond the police, and it's even more apparent than the pilot and the episode we just watched. I mean, not watched, bared through. So, Torchwood get called to a murder case, and they do the same editing they always do. When the pacing's not good, they constantly fade to white in one shot.
Yeah,
it's so infuriating, and I just want them to stop doing that. But I remember season 2 they still do that, so looking forward to that one, guys. Really, thank you. So they get called to this thing, and they're like, "You guys, they've been written. Your name's been written in blood." Torchwood and Gwen's like, "I'm a character, Jack." And then Yanto's like, "I'm a character too." And the police are like, "Hey, random lady that's never been in the series before, who has this personal connection to the Torchwood. So glad you're here." And she's like, "Yeah, wouldn't it have made sense if we incorporated that character Andy from episode 1? I think that would have made a lot more sense." And then Andy's like, "Don't worry, I'm not really important until the finale in season 2 and my own box set spin-off and Big Finish that's way better than this show." And this commissioner, what are they called in England? Oh, DCI. This DCI. So this DCI is like, "Hey, I'm DCI."
Swanson, I think her name was.
DCI Swanson. She's like, "Hey, see Midsummer Murders? It's not bad, actually. I'm not in that show, though. I'm in this one instead." And Jack's like, "I'm beyond the government."
I wish I was in that show.
Yeah, "I'm in the government outside the police." And she's like, No, actually, this episode totally contradicts what you just said." And they start investigating what's going on, and they find out that they're part of this group called Crimson. Prism. Pilgrim. Who even cares? They bring back the couple that had died using the glove, even though Jack was like, "We can't use the glove." And then Gwen's like, "I'm a character, Jack. You gotta let me do it." And Yanto's like, "She is a character," and pulls out this like stopwatch and is like, "Can't wait to be a character with you." And she's like, "Thanks, Yanto. I'm real glad we're characters together." And he's like, "Ha ha, character." And they bring back the couple, and they're like, oh god, stuff, God. And then she's like, "I'm Welsh, you need to listen to me." And they're like, God, Jesus, God. And then they find out about Pilgrim, and he's like, "Pilgrim, we gotta find it, but we gotta be outside of the government, beyond the police. We're gonna ask the police for help." "Oh, okay." And they're like, "Okay, we found out who the next victims might be. Oh, we're too late. Let's bring them back to as well." And they're like, "Oh God, Jesus, Lord God." And he's like, "There's a lot of blasphemy in this episode. That's how people know that we're outside the government, beyond the police." and then they're like, "Oh man, the only way we can figure it out now is we bring Suzie back." And they're like, "Ding, ding, 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 ding." And then Jack's like, "Beyond the government, outside the police, left at the Foursquare, down by rights." And then they bring Suzie back, and she's like, "I'm back." And then Yanto goes, "I'm still counting." And they go, she's dead. And he's like, no, I'm still counting. But what I should have said is there's still the heart rate monitor and it's saying she's still alive. I don't know why I kept saying I was still counting. And Jack's like, man, you're outside the government, beyond the police, Yanto. And then they're like, hey, you need to tell us who the bad person is. And Susie's like, hey, do you know that the wound that's at the back of my head actually doesn't make sense for how I died? And they're like, hey, outside the government, beyond the police. And then they go.
You know that also that would also very much prevent me from speaking in any state of the fashion. I mean, I'm sure we're just using magic at this point, but I'm pretty sure that memories would still be held within, my brain matter. So trying to make me remember something that literally was in my brain, probably not going to help.
Yeah, exactly.
Does someone not know how memories work?
No, they're stored in your heart. Remember, that's what they said in the medieval times. Outside the government, beyond the police. And so Jack's like, all right, okay, fine. And then he looks at the camera and he's like, you guys really need to hire a scientific advisor. You just do, all right. Brian Cox isn't really up to much at the moment. Just call him. And so
he would have actually been happy. The thing is, he even does a show, Science of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And he has to struggle to try and fix a lot of the stuff that happened. So, I mean, he doesn't really try even really, just sort of says stuff about time travel and that's about it. So
this is very true.
It's on him.
Then here's Rufus Hound, and Rufus Hound's like, I'm a great actor, but I better not be in the episode with Lionel. Then he was, and I was sad. But then Jack's like, okay guys, we need to be outside the government, beyond the police. We need to go find this guy. His name was Max, I think it was. And that just made me laugh, because that guy from the Christmas special was like, and my name is Max. Ting! So
which Christmas special was that?
The Kylie Minogue one. The guy who advertises it, Max Capricorn, who runs the replica thing. Yeah. So yeah, they go and grab him.
Can't wait to get to that one.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun with that, because Kylie Minogue was definitely a character. And so they're like, oh, we've caught Max, and he's like, booga 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 booga, and they're like, you're so good at acting, guy we hired to play Max. So thanks, I do a lot of community theatre. And Jack's like, you're sure a character, buddy. And then Susie's like, hey Gwen. Gwen's like, what? I'm gonna get you to sympathize with me and take me to my dad. And Gwen's like, all right, we're outside the government, beyond the police. So they leave, and then as they leave, the Torchwood turns off, and they're like, oh no, how did Torchwood run out of power and stuff? And the Yanto's like, don't look at me, you shot my girlfriend. And they're like, ha, we sure did, Yanto. You're such a character, you little scamp. And then he's like, ha ha, my girlfriend was brutally murdered by people I worked for. They had a cool glass of beer over it. And then Jack goes to the vault and he goes, hey, you, Max. And Max looks at them and goes, ooga booga booga. And Jack's like, all right, ooga booga booga.
That's really helpful.
Yeah. And then Toshiko's like, oh, ooga booga booga's from it's from this special poem that I know about. Jack's like, you're so good, Toshiko. I'm so glad this is a show that's on TV. And she's like, yeah, we're paid actors who play characters. And he's like, we sure do. Isn't that right, Max from community college? Ooga booga booga booga. And so Yanto's like, I'm going to use the Millennium Center as a relay. And they're like, he's sure a character, Yanto. I think Toshiko's meant to be the tech whiz, so I don't know why we're getting you to do it. That literally doesn't make any sense. And Toshiko's like, at this point, who even is my character? And Owen's like, I know, right? Apparently I'm a sex god. Who would have thunk it? And so Jack's like, we need to call somebody. And then Toshiko goes, but we're outside the government and beyond the police. He's like, not this episode, we're not. Or any other episode prior or after. And so he calls up the police. And she's like, hey, Torchwood. He's like, hey, you know how we're a government secret and we're outside the police? And she's like, yeah, can you put me on speaker so that everybody can hear about our secret government facility? She's like, sure can, Jack. Really glad that you're outside the government, beyond the police. And then the whole police force, they listen. Ha ha, where's Andy? He should be in the shot. Ha ha. And then Jack's like, hey, you need to go get a book that's about Ooga Booga. And she's like, okay, cool. Oh man, sorry. I've been after that sneeze since Harriet Skelly gave the synopsis for last episode. So that's great. Anyway, so she goes off and gets a book. Right now, the author they reference was published over 100 years ago. As of this year, published 200 years ago.
Yeah.
So there would be so many different prints of her work. Okay? Yeah. So she goes and gets the complete works of Emily Dickinson, and then they're like, okay, read the Ooga Booga. And she's like, okay, so they read the Ooga Booga poem, and Max is like, Ooga Booga, in his cell, and then they're like, oh, hey, cool. And then they cut over to Suzie and Gwen, and they're like, Susie's World. Good show, by the way. Really good show about science that maybe the Torchwood team should have watched. And yeah. And so they're in the car, and Gwen's like, so tell me what it's like to be dead. And Susie's like, well, do you want the truth or a lie? I want the truth. And she's like, there's nothing. And she's like, oh, that's sad. And then the 8th Doctor appears, and he goes, immortality's a curse! And then he disappeared. And then he leaves behind a sticker that said, my people go to the Matrix, and put on their bumper. And then he disappeared. And they were like, man, that's pretty sad that humanity doesn't go anywhere. And then the glass lady from the last episode of Stephen Moffat's run appears, and she goes, oh, we make a really shitty version of the Matrix though, so I mean it doesn't save your soul, but it saves a replica of you, so that's close enough. And then she disappears. Yep. And then Missy goes, I don't want to be in this show. Yeah, I've forgotten about it. It's not canon. And then Missy appears, and she's all like, oh, don't worry, you become a Cyberman soon, Suzie. And then she disappears too. And so, you know, they have this great adventure. Then they go and see Susie's dad. And then Susie's dad's like, he can hear it. He can hear, Susie's World. He's like, oh God, it's her theme song. And then she kills her dad. And Gwen's like, oh, I can't move. I'm Welsh. And it's like, you sure are. You're not going to feel Welsh after this. Oh! And then chucks her into the...
No, this bad pun is killing me. No.
And she goes, sorry, Gwen, but you're slowly getting shot in the head. I was like, well, okay, yep, all right.
That doesn't make a lick of sense.
And they chuck her into the wheelchair, and then she starts wheeling her out. And this nurse walks by, and Suzie, in front of the nurse, whips Gwen's hand away from asking for help. I'm like, surely that nurse would have been like, hey, actually, no. But that didn't happen. And
no, it did not.
That was really dumb. And then Susie's like, come on, Gwen, let's go on an adventure together. And she starts being like a completely different character for the last 10 to 15 minutes of this episode. It's really peculiar. They find, and they're like, oh no, the Ooga Booga spell's not working. And then Toshiko goes, the ISBN number. And they're like, what? Yeah. But isn't the N an ISBN number? And she's like, shut up, people who say BNZ Bank. All right.
Atmos system.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. And so they're like, oh, okay, give us the ISBN. And then Toshiko looks at them and like, number. And then like, oh, this is the one. And then that's when I disengaged myself from the episode, because her work is 200 years in print. There would be so many ISBNs for this woman.
Yeah. So unless they got the exact book that Suzie had been using for this, then
they did though. Even though Torchwood didn't know that.
No, they didn't know that. The police officer even says she went and bought a collector's edition.
Exactly. She
did not know what book it was. Yeah. They knew the poem only. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
really, what they should have done instead of having this thing happen is just have one of the poems be a thing instead, because that would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what doesn't make any sense at all? Suzie really wants to get away with this. Like, really, really wants to get away with this. So why does she create a failsafe?
Well, I mean, the failsafe is something just in case she gets trapped in a thing for some reason. This is what they try to say. But the idea that it's just like a ISBN number, the idea that she uses something like that could be found anywhere, or at least if someone finds out the reason for it to happen, which is as simple as there's a guy saying this verse over and over again, then anyone would just be like, okay, we'll just read off every part of this book or this poem. It makes a lot of sense. So obviously they'd figure out it eventually if that was the case. So what probably would have been a better idea is maybe making it something incongruous and have no relevance to Emily Dickinson at all. That would probably have been a better idea. And also, how does the membrane with big quotation marks here able to pick this up after they've literally shut down the power? How is the computers still working if the lockdown turns off everything?
Yeah, I don't know.
Really know what that's about.
Maybe the corrupt MP3 file OS that they have can pick that up.
Maybe. I mean, the thing about a lockdown generally is there's no way to turn them off. That's the idea of a lockdown. Is that the only way for it to come back up is after a set amount of time. That's what a lockdown is all about. So the whole thing that they're doing just makes no sense whatsoever. So.
It does not indeed. So Owen and Jack are like, hey, we got a tracker on that car, and no one's like, I'm really concerned about this person. And I'm like, Owen, to be fair, Naoko Mori is way hotter, so why are you even going that way? All right, and then he was like, "Hey, I can't actually communicate with you because I'm a television show character." And I was like, "Oh, that's a good point." And so he's like, "Oh, I'm concerned," and I'm like, "Oh, are you? Shut up." And they go to this like dock, and they're like, "Oh, you got to hurry up, otherwise she'll catch a ferry." And I'm like, what's to stop them from finding a speedboat and catching up with the ferry? What?
Beyond the government.
Yeah, beyond the government, outside the police. And so... and so, they catch up with them. And Susie's done this weird thing again, where she's like, really happy to be with Gwen. And she's like, let's be sorority sisters in your last couple of minutes of being alive. And I was like, why not just leave her body in the car and gap it? I don't understand. It's like...
I'm guessing she's operating on some sort of idea that it's like, and she needs to be close to Gwen to suck the life out of her. Not sure how that would play into it. Apparently.
What? This glove is already defying the laws of life and death. Just shut up, show. And so she's all like, Jack, I'm outside the government, beyond the police. And he's like, no, you're not. And then he shoots her, and she's like, ha ha ha, I can't die because I'm outside the government. # beyond the police. And then Jack's like, Yano! And he's like, I'm a character. Yano, you need to destroy the glove. And instead of Yano destroying it, he throws it at Toshiko to destroy it. And she's like, I destroyed it. And then Susie's like, there's a demon coming for you, Jack. He's in the darkness of the void and he's coming for you. And I was like, the Doctor is way more of a threat to that demon's livelihood than Jack is. And then and then she's like, oh, I'm dead again. That's why the episode's called They Keep Killing Suzie. And Gwen's like, I'm totally fine again. Just twice.
Actually, no, I mean, I guess the kind of 3 times because of the one time that they brought it back and it didn't work. But it's not really like a full-on life-death thing. So it's still only 3 times. So it's still not really enough times for you to be like, oh man, they keep killing her.
Yeah. And so they're like, oh, well, we're outside the government now, beyond the police. And that's the end of this really dumb episode. It was written by 2 people. I just want people to be aware of that. 2 people managed to write a shockingly shit and terrible episode. So...
And they've not written for Torchwood since.
Have they written for anything since?
Not in the Whoniverse.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. Alright, The Late Crow, I want to get your thoughts on what is quite possibly one of the most asinine pieces of fiction I've ever had to bear witness to.
Okay. It wasn't good. We've cleared that quite succinctly. Okay, one thing, like, the whole episode was garbage, really, but so there's a bit when they're kind of trying to work out what the hell Pilgrim is because the guy, the forgettable character that got brought back to life momentarily, said that, oh, what's Pilgrim? Toshiko, be a character and look that up for us. And she's looking at her computer and goes, guys, I found it. Cut to next scene. I couldn't find it on the computer, but here's some paperwork that I did not show where I found. And I'm just kind of like going, but the previous scene implied that you found it on the computer. Now you're saying you didn't? What?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, and then because of the paper, they have to go and look at Susie's stuff from before she died, eh?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I remember now. What a forgettable scene.
Oh, the whole episode is pretty forgettable.
Mm.
While we're here, I've just casually looked up what those other two people, these writers, have done since they have written for like single episodes, like not for a whole thing. Was it an American TV series? Is it American? I think it looks American. Shameless.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Okay, and it's the American version. The American version is awful.
And the Frankenstein Chronicles. And
shit.
and something called No Offense, a single episode of that.
Well, no offense, they shouldn't have a career. Oh, well, I'm telling the truth.
Well, by the looks of it, they don't. And that may be why.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was dumb. A lot of things. Also, we see that they have their comms and things that they. I want to know when they're in the bar, right? And they're like giving visual feed back to the others at the base. Where's that visual feed coming from? Like, yeah, they've got the headsets, but
well,
I just want to know where
it's
their
coming
visual feed's coming from.
Beyond the government, outside the police.
Oh, right. Well,
I feel like nobody watches the first like a minute and a bit of each episode.
Well, if it's outside the government, beyond the police, why can they only pull 180p?
I know, right? Aren't they meant to have cultivated alien tech to make themselves better?
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not.
It's so awful.
So much better.
Like, okay, so Kanon and Company fell on its face, right? Like, it fell hard. And it's because people weren't really after a spin-off for Doctor Who. Because, like, the episode's not awful. I mean, we rewatched it for Whoscussion. It wasn't bad. But people just weren't really after it. And to be honest, I don't really think Doctor Who needed it. It already had an EU. It already had Big Finish.
Yeah. This don't need a spin-off.
And when it really comes down to it, they kind of should have just gone with, Unit. Considering they would be the ones who would face off a lot of alien threats all the time.
Yeah.
Good thing Big Finish are onto it.
Yeah. That's why Unit makes more sense to me as well, because they're United Nations, so every single country has a hand in cultivating alien tech. So they just would be a significantly better force at dealing with aliens than Torchwood would.
Correct.
Yeah. It's just this whole thing is just not cool. So also Suzie says she's overdosed this Max. Was it Max?
Yeah.
Max guy.
I'm pretty certain it's Max.
On retcon, which is apparently an essential ingredient in an amnesia pill, and I'm just thinking we're just the scientific advisor on what's actually in amnesia pills. But apart from that,
I love the image of it. The image that they have up on the screens of the particular thing that causes it. It is attaching to the DNA of this person. What? Excuse me?
No, that's correct. I remember Brian Cox, he brought it up on Science of Dr. Pooh. He should have watched it. It was on Christmas,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure he should be dead. I don't know, but I think he should be dead. When they revive Suzie, she's still got the head wound, obviously. They don't do anything about the chest wound, because Jack kind of stabbed her with a knife. And if he did stab her in the heart, she really shouldn't be alive at all, like have a heartbeat even. Just kind of doesn't work that way.
But Yanto was still counting. I'm a character.
Oh, of course, if Yanto's still counting, yep, that's how life works.
Oh my god, you've just reminded me. I'm sorry to interject on your thoughts here, but Yanto ends the episode with wanting to have sex with Jack, and it completely contradicts his self-deprecative nature from last episode. He's like happy-go-lucky and jovial at the end, and Jack is responsible for the death of the one person he held dear, and he's worked with Jack forever, so his pheromones working now make literally no sense to me whatsoever.
I think that comes down to another point of Russell's sort of, this needs to happen at some point, stick it anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
A little bit of maple syrup. I think the guys that are like who wrote this episode were actually made of maple syrup. They're actually descendants of the Maple Syrup clan, the most powerful ninjas.
So what happened was, at some point, Russell T Davies was sitting down and was having a card game with his friends. He goes, I played 2 Maple Syrup tokens, and they're going to write a Torchwood episode for me.
Oh my gosh, in defense mode as well.
That's what happened. Yeah. But they're like only got like meager amounts of attack and defense, so they're shit. They're like the Ojamas. That's how shit they are.
Makes sense.
Just like we've gotten so off topic that we're talking about Japanese card games. I love it. This is what Torchwood brings out in us. The end of all semblance of fact.
It's because, well, the show is devoid of fact, so why not Whoscussion while we're talking about it?
Oh yeah, Whoscussion is the only canon that matters now.
Yep, honestly, I need that on a t-shirt. Doctor Who canon, only trust TARDIS Wiki and Whoscussion.
Yeah. And Bradley's basement hashtag represent.
But yeah, the whole thing was terrible, and I didn't enjoy it. And again, I was on my phone for most of it.
Yes,
that's amazing. I feel like that's a running theme here. Harry Scully, your thoughts on quite possibly the greatest piece of film media ever made by mankind as a species?
It was awful. It was awful. Science, the way that they tried to use science in a show that effectively translates to magic doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I don't. Just stop. Like, just please no.
We've got 4 more episodes, right? So I'm so sorry.
Oh, man, this season is just it's insane that something like this was produced for real. Like,
right?
It doesn't make any sense.
And in the UK, like, that's the part that I'm really trying to desperately comprehend.
Yeah.
Is how did the United Kingdom give us this show?
It doesn't really make sense, does it?
But it made the revived Doctor Who series, so
yeah, I guess
there is that.
The BBC was in a bad place. I guess
they're like, no, all the preteens are buying it. I'm like, yeah, but will they still be fans in like 20 years? No. Then why are you catering to that market?
Yeah.
And they blue screened.
Yeah.
So, I suppose is that part A, people? Oh, I haven't given my thoughts, have I? This episode is, what's that motion we do to pull water through a straw? What's that called?
Sucking.
Oh, there we go. Cool. This episode is a high level of sucking. Really glad you guys were able to clear that up for me. It's just awful. It's really, really bad. I know the actress who plays Suzie Costello is actually significantly better than this. I've seen her in stuff like Luther, obviously Game of Thrones. Though her last episode of Game of Thrones is some of the hokiest acting in this because they're not following the source material anymore. It's so awful. But yeah, just the director's James Strong, and I wouldn't say this is his strongest work. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. In the next part. Catch you later. Bye.